All right, this is the 140-160 class, and we're going to work out of our murder trial.
Oh, begins with a question for the record. All right, now on this photograph, I've had marked as Peoples 113. This sketch, did you prepare this sketch of the injuries that Mr. James Dudier received?
Yes, I did.
And did you do an internal and external examination of him?
Yes, I did.
What was his height and weight?
He was 70 inches tall, or 5 feet 10 inches tall, and weighed 191 pounds.
190 and what?
5'10".
Okay. And what injuries did you notice to him when you did your examination?
He had a single gunshot wound. It was over the outside of the left shoulder, indicated by N1 on the diagram.
And let me show you a photograph that has been marked as Peoples 11. Does that appear to be of that injury to him?
Yes.
With the laser, show us.
Again, here on the outside of the left upper arm.
And what path did that bullet take as it entered the arm?
It went through the arm. It fractured the humerus, which is the upper arm bone. It continued into the chest, went through the space between the 6th and 7th ribs, through the upper lobe of the left lung, through the aorta, which is the large vessel that carries blood from the heart to the rest of the body. And then the aorta sits right against the vertebral column. So it struck the vertebrae and stopped, and then actually fell down, or was carried with the blood flow down lower into the aorta, where I recovered it.
Okay. Now, Mr. Dudier, just a moment. Photograph 12, does this show, you said the bullet entered. Peoples 11 shows where the bullet entered?
It entered there.
And does Peoples 12 show where it went once it entered?
Yes, after it went through the arm, it actually exited from the arm and re-entered the chest.
Where?
So there's an exit wound here and a re-entry wound here.
Oh, I see. Then once it re-entered, then it goes through the left lung and goes down goes where?
Went into the aorta and then was carried with the blood flow down to lower in aorta.
And was that bullet recovered?
Yes, it was.
Where was it recovered?
It was in the abdominal aorta.
Show us using 113, approximately where that is, where it was recovered. Give us an idea.
Yeah, it was about the level of the navel, just a little bit to the left of the midline. And the place where it went up was in the chest.
So what did you say? That bullet was given to whom?
Mr. McGinnis.
And did you see any other injuries on Mr. Dudier other than this gunshot injury labeled N1?
There were some superficial injuries, blunt injuries, scrapes, and very superficial cut on the forehead.
Let me show you what I've marked as Peoples 114. I think this might be your original diagram that you did of Mr. Dudier. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you draw in on this one where this forehead injury was?
Actually, this was the second diagram.
This is of Mr. Dudier. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And did you draw in the forehead injury?
Yes.
Is that? Go ahead. Does it show up?
Actually, over the left frontal region above the left eyebrow.
Does it show in this photograph, number 10?
Yes. Again, it's in this area above the left eyebrow.
Is that consistent with hitting the pavement?
It could occur that way, yes.
On this People's Exhibit 114, did you also draw in something near the knees on Mr. Dudier?
Yes.
What does that indicate?
Again, there's a small 3/4 by 1/2 inch abrasion just above the kneecap.
This looks,
again, collapse.
Consistent with what?
Again, collapsing onto a pavement.
Is this near the navel area where you believe the bullet was recovered?
Now, this was another small abrasion over the left hip bone.
May we have the lights on, please? Based upon your autopsy on Mr. Dudier, did you form an opinion as to his cause of death?
Yes, I did.
And what was your opinion regarding Mr. Dudier?
It was a gunshot wound of the torso.
Is that okay? Could you tell us, upon getting that type of gunshot wound, what the effect, if this is in the realm of your expertise, upon getting that gunshot wound, what would be the effect immediately upon Mr. Dudier?
I can't say for given individual physiologically. There was nothing that would have caused him to collapse immediately. He had a hole in his lung and hole in his aorta, so he would have been bleeding internally and would have collapsed probably within a matter of minutes.
Somebody given this type of injury that Mr. Dudier got would be able to run?
Yes.
And I don't know if I asked it this way, but as to Mr. Silman, someone with the injuries he got, would he be able to run?
No, particularly with the injury to the spinal cord. He would have dropped right where he was.
Okay. Are you able to say how close the shooter was to Mr. Dudier when Mr. Dudier received this injury, this gunshot injury?
Again, I didn't see any evidence of gunshot residue, gunpowder residue. So probably more than a foot or two away.
But other than that, you can't narrow it down?
That's correct.
Can you say where the gun was in relation to Mr. Dudier? If he's shot, this is his left. Can you say the shooter has to be over there somewhere for him to get it this way? As opposed to, right smack.
His left side would have to be toward the muzzle of the gun. But again, I can't say if he was standing up, lying on the ground.
Assuming he wasn't lying on the ground when he got shot, assuming he was standing up when he got shot, given where you said it was recovered near the navel area, can you say something about the position he may have been in relation to the gun?
Well, the actual path of the bullet was essentially horizontal. As I say, after it stopped inside the body, it fell down into the abdomen, but the initial path was essentially horizontal.
Goes in and then later on drops?
Correct.
Okay, let me just look at my notes here. Did you examine fists or fingers or fingernails of either Mr. Silman or Mr. Dudier to see if there was any evidence of maybe someone getting into a fist fight or anything like that?
I did examine the hands. I didn't see any injuries. I don't recall any specific findings on the nails. I would have to again look back at my report to be sure.
Okay.
But I did look at them.
Let me just look at my notes, see if I have any other questions. I think I have finished. Did you, when the autopsy was done, say upon Mr. Dudier, did you have clothing did the body come to you clothed?
Yes, it did.
Did you look at the clothes to see if there was an injury to the jacket consistent with the injury that you found on, for example, on Mr. Dudier, on N1, on People's 113?
I didn't make a specific comment about it, and I don't recall offhand.
When you did the autopsy, did you find anything in the mouths of the victims, Mr. Silman and Mr. Dudier?
Yes.
What did you find?
There were small plastic spindles.
What did you do with them?
I gave them to the police.
You gave them to the what?
To the police.
Okay. And did you take a blood sample on Mr. Dudier and Mr. Silman and send it to be tested to see if there was anything in their systems?
Yes, I did.
And did you get that information back?
Yes, I did.
As to Mr. Silman, what was found, if anything, in his system? Do you have that with you?
Yeah.
Is this the kind of thing you would consider, by the way? Is this the kind of thing you take into consideration when you form your opinion as to the cause of death? Toxicology?
I take it into consideration. In this case, there were overwhelming injuries, so I don't think it made a significant contribution. But certainly it's one of the things that is considered.
Okay. As to Mr. Silman, what was found? His blood was sent to a lab?
Correct.
They test it and send you results?
Correct.
What, as far as Mr. Silman's blood, was found?
There was a 0.11 gram percent alcohol or ethyl alcohol, which is drinking alcohol. There was a 0.11 milligrams per liter benzoyl-gonine, which is a breakdown product of cocaine. There was a 0.42 milligrams per liter of methamphetamine, particularly D-methamphetamine, and a 0.02 milligrams per liter of D-amphetamine.
Is that it?
That is for the blood.
And while we're on Mr. Silman, I'm sorry, was there something else that was tested for drugs?
They also tested the the alcohol level in the fluid in vitreous humor. That was 0.12 grams percent.
To give us an idea of 0.11 or 0.12, about how many drinks would that be, if you are able to give an opinion?
For an average person, it would be 5 or 6 drinks, 5 or 6 ounces of whiskey, or 5 or 6 beers over a short period of time.
Okay, and given the cocaine that you found and the meth that you found in Mr. Silman's system, would that have any effect on his ability to run with these injuries? In other words, if he had all this in his system, when he shot, could he run faster, run more slowly, if you could opine?
If anything, he would probably run faster.
Okay, but is it fair to say with that spinal cord injury, drugs or no drugs, you would still collapse upon receiving that?
That's correct.
Okay. And as to Mr. Dudier, what was found in his system?
Mr. Dudier had a blood ethyl alcohol 0.33 grams percent and a vitreous ethyl alcohol of 0.34 grams percent. He had a cocaine of 0.06 milligrams per liter, benzo something, which again is the breakdown product of cocaine, of 0.15 milligrams per liter, D-methamphetamine of 0.07 milligrams per liter, and D-amphetamine of 0.01 milligrams per liter.
Let me ask you this. If someone put drugs in their mouth, you found drugs in the mouth, right?
Yes.
If I told you that some of the officers at the scene found some drugs, bindles, whatever, in the mouths, let's assume for a moment someone is running and they swallow some drugs and the baggie opens up or something, so it actually dissolves in the stomach. Could that have any impact on the drugs that you found in the system of these two? If they got it through, could they have obtained the levels you found from something dissolving in their stomach, in other words?
They could have, yes.
So can you say whether or not they actually used these drugs before the incident, or whether they swallowed some drugs at some point, inadvertently or intentionally, and that's what accounted for the levels?
I can't say how
how
the drugs got into the blood.
Oh, by the way, you said Mr. Dudier had a 0.33.
Yes.
About how many drinks is that? If the 0.11 that Silman has is about 5 drinks, how many drinks is the 0.33 about?
A lot. It's 15 or 16, drinks, which again would be an ounce of whiskey or 1 beer or 1 glass of wine.
Are there any other causes that could, let's say someone saw these people and they didn't act drunk to them, could there be any other causes for someone to have their blood tested or vitreous liquid tested and get up to a 0.33 if they had these? I mean, are there any other causes to get the blood alcohol that high other than drinking?
Nothing reasonable, I suppose it could be injected into the bloodstream, but reasonably it's from imbibing.
When someone does, if someone did drink that many drinks, can you tell when they drank them? In other words, if they drank that morning and that lunch and that afternoon, I mean, is there any way you can tell when they drank to get up to that 0.33?
Not specifically. Again, comparing the blood alcohol and the vitreous alcohol, they probably had not had anything to drink for a period of 15 minutes to half an hour, but
other than that, you can't.
Beyond that, I can't say anything.
All right. Do the sketches that you were shown today that you drew and that for this proceeding, as well as the others that we showed you, do they accurately reflect the injuries you saw during the autopsy upon Messrs. Stillman and Dudier?
Reasonably. Again, they're not supposed to be photographic reproductions, so it's the wounds are located in the general area. They weren't specifically measured.
And do the photographs that were shown to you of the victims that were taken at the hospital, as well as the autopsy, accurately reflect the injuries that you described for the jury today?
Yes, they do. All right, this will be some timed warm-up. It's going to be about 160. 14s.
14th?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
No, 13s. I'm sorry. Yeah, I did say 13.
okay. Sorry. He begins with a question for the record. Do you recall what time it was when you left the store premises?
Well, it was almost daylight.
Well, was it during the nighttime or daytime that you left the store for your break? Do you remember?
For my break?
Yes, for your break.
I left around 3 a.m.
How long is your break?
Oh, about a half an hour.
Did you take your full break at 3 a.m.?
Yes.
What did you do on your break?
Smoked a cigarette, went to the gas station, and stopped at the donut shop for coffee and some donuts.
What time did you return to the Safeway store?
I am trying to remember. I think it was just about 3:24 or 3:25 in the morning.
Now, during the time that you worked as security that night at the Safeway store, did you interact with Cal Bates at all?
No, just to say hello.
Why is that?
Well, he does outside parking perimeter security, and I do inside store security. We rarely see each other.
How many conversations did you have with Mr. Bates on this particular evening? Do you recall?
One.
Where did the conversation take place?
At the front of the store when we were locking up the building for the evening.
What time was that?
Around midnight.
So where does Mr. Bates work? Does he walk the premises outside, or does he perform his duties as outside security?
He mainly sits in his car at the perimeter of the lot and watches the main entrance. He also watches for unusual activity in the parking lot.
Now, on this evening, were you armed with a weapon?
You mean a gun?
Yes, a gun or baton or knife.
I carry a stun gun and a baton on my belt.
Does Mr. Bates have any weapon on his person?
I am not sure.
Did you take any training to carry the stun gun?
Yes, we take training to carry any type of weapon.
Now, on the evening in question, when did you first hear the sound of gunshots?
Around 4:30 a.m.
Where were you in the Safeway store when you first heard the shots?
I was in the stockroom office area watching the outside surveillance cameras.
What did you do when you first heard the sound of gunshots?
Well, I thought it was a car backfiring, so I didn't do anything.
What made you go investigate the sounds of gunshots?
Well, I was watching the surveillance cameras at the same time that I heard the sound of gunshots. I could see Cal's car in the lot. After the gunshot sounds, I saw him exiting his car. Then I saw him fall in the parking lot.
Did you see anyone else in the parking lot?
Yeah, that's when I noticed two people running across the parking lot.
Where were they running to?
Away from the area where Cal's car was parked.
Are you sure there were two people running in the parking lot?
Well, I only saw two on the surveillance cameras.
What did you do then?
I went downstairs to the front door of the Safeway.
Did you go outside?
No, I just looked in the lot. It was too dark to see anything from the front entrance to the store.
Did you call the police department?
Yes, I did.
How long did it take for the police to arrive?
About 3 minutes. An ambulance came too at about the same time that the police arrived at the parking lot.
Now, did you remain in the store until the police arrived?
Yes, they told me to remain inside in case somebody was trying to get into the store to rob us. So I stayed near the front door exits, but I did not unlock the doors. I just stood there waiting for help to arrive.
Now, how long, if you know, had Cal Bates worked for the Safeway store?
About 3 months.
And is it true that because of the nature of his job, there seemed to be a high turnover in outside security guards?
I think you would have to ask the personnel department that question. I am not sure.
Well, how long did you work at the Safeway as inside security?
4 years.
Did it appear to you that there was a high turnover in outside security guards?
Yeah, there was, but I think it was because of the nature of the job and not the type of work they had to do. The job is really kind of boring when you are outside stuck in your car all night. Let's do this in 12 seconds. Got 1 second.
Okay, ready? For the record, I am going to show you exhibit number 22. Can you explain to me why it says on here that the crew worked on buildings 101 and 102 last summer, and they did not replace the flooring in either building? Is that correct?
Well, a picture does not really represent the situation real well. Building 101 is not in the same area as Building 102. Each building is a separate unit. They are all separate and individual units. They were built 5 years apart. Building 101 had the front portion of the floor replaced. Building 102 had some flooring removed, but as far as I know, none of the flooring was replaced.
Well, what does this picture depict then?
I am not really sure. It looks like Building 101. Well, it looks like the entrance to Building 101. They did replace some flooring there. It is hard to tell from the photograph. I know that the flooring was not replaced in Building 102. None of that work was done. They started on Building 101, and then the work was stopped.
Well, on which side of the street is Building 101?
What do you mean?
Which side of Avenida Jose is Building 101 located on?
The south side.
I see. And which side of Avenida Jose is Building 102 located on?
The north side.
Now this exhibit here, exhibit number 23, what does that depict?
That looks like the entrance to Building 102.
How much of that flooring was replaced last summer?
Well, as far as I know, none.
Now, when the construction crew came in, what was your understanding of what flooring was to be replaced?
All of it.
What do you mean by all of it?
We were told that the flooring in both buildings would be replaced that summer. We had moved items out of Buildings 101 and 102 into Building 103 so that the flooring could be replaced.
And why was the flooring being replaced?
The floors were old and dirty, and management wanted a new look in each building. The buildings were also slated to be painted after the flooring was installed.
Do you know whether or not any work was done on Building 102 prior to Emery Construction coming in and giving estimates on floor replacement?
I don't know.
Now, what was the problem with the Building 101 as far as you know?
Well, just that the flooring was old. Some of it was coming loose.
What do you mean?
Well, the tile or linoleum was peeling in spots. It was dangerous to walk on it, especially if you wore heels to work.
Were any other improvements going to take place in Building 101 that summer, as far as you know?
Just the flooring and the painting.
And how about to Building 102?
Just the flooring and the painting.
Were there any exterior improvements planned to either of these buildings?
Yes, the parking lots on each side of the buildings were going to be replaced.
Can you give me some idea of which parking lots you are referring to?
Well, on Building 101, it would be the west side parking lot that was due for replacement.
What about Building 102?
Well, that would also be the west side parking lot.
Are the parking lots for each building separate?
Yes, they are separated by Avenida Jose. Avenida Jose goes right down between the two buildings.
Is Avenida Jose the only way to get to these buildings?
Yes, that is the main way to get to that area from Broadway Boulevard.
Now tell me, have you ever met Jack Emery of Emery Construction?
No, I have never met him.
Did you ever see Jack Emery on the job site at any time?
No.
To your knowledge, were there any leakage problems from water pipes in either of these buildings?
Well, I do know that the toilets were always overflowing in both the women's restroom and the men's restroom area.
In which buildings?
Both of them, 101 and 102.